So welcome, you two. Thanks for being on the show with me again.
You bet. It's good
So
to see
happy to
you,
be
Jessa.
here.
I would love, if you don't mind starting, and you probably said this last time, but if you just talk a little bit about what's brought you to this work. Why is it that this is what you do?
Well, I think there's like the personal reasons and then there's like the together reasons. Personal reason for me was sort of an early adopter of Buddhism in my life and the Bodhisattva vow around, wanting to, for every existence I have, pledge it to lowering the suffering in the world.
Mm.
So that was just a really, for me, that was a great guiding principle no matter where I ended up career wise. And then I ended up in the mental health field, which is a good area if you're trying to deal with
Trying to help
suffering.
people. Yeah.
Exactly. And then Tara and I, and I'm sure she'll talk more about
Mm.
this, we started, in the couples counseling together because our relationship, we were a couple of therapists who knew a thing or two about communicating and having a healthy relationship, and we loved each other very much, and we ran into some significant issues really early on in our relationship.
Mm.
And Tara called me in a moment saying like, we got to do this. If we're struggling ourselves, we got to, whatever it is we're learning in our path right now, we got to help people out there. We have to help couples, and that's sort of,
During stressful transitions.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
short story.
I like that story. I
Anything
just
you want to
always
add? Yeah.
I always just love hearing why he's just amazing. I remember the first time I met him, we were both working at an eating disorder treatment facility, and we were doing a ropes course with adolescent teens struggling with anorexia and bulimia. And I saw his work and the way he just made people feel so safe. And I'm like, he's the most amazing therapist I've ever seen. And to like now, 14 years later, that we're in this together is just,
Yeah.
it's just that reminder because, we're here all day with each other and then at home. For me, the reason I knew from a really young age that I wanted to help others, probably because of my trauma history as a child and all of the abuse. And I just knew that something, like I had that like inner resilience somehow. And I just knew that I would use that inner strength to help others get out and find their light too.
Mm.
And then
That's
again,
beautiful.
when EJ and I met and then got pregnant with twins, and it just all happened so quickly. And then the transition was so difficult. I literally had no idea how hard it could be. And so that's when we were compelled to A, figure it out ourselves, not even figuring it out, just going through and seeing what works and what doesn't. And now we've, 8 years later, we have an amazing couples counseling center and a staff of 15. And our podcast has helped lots of couples and individuals to hopefully gain skills and knowledge and suffer less and don't give up too soon, right? That's what I
Yeah.
wanted to do, but I was like, I can't. I just
Yeah.
gotta see where this could go.
So you mentioned having twins. I mean, maybe that's a good segue into what are the kinds of things that can happen in people's lives? What kind of stories have you heard with your clients, and what kinds of things could kind of throw a wrench into the sex life for people?
I think the excuse me. I think the biggest thing in relationship in general, and definitely in physical intimacy, is just big change. When things shift dramatically, our connection, we all sort of have our script and our autopilot that we
Mm.
go into in stressful moments, and those autopilots are pretty like they're really hardwired into who we are as individuals and not who we are as a couple. And so
Mm.
when those big disruptive times come or those big shifts come, I think we just have a tendency of sort of going in different directions a little bit. And so for me, it's like whatever it is, it's having kids. Sometimes it's getting married, kids leaving the house, job change. Like anytime things change significantly, I think people struggle to stay connected.
Mm.
I do. I think we don't have the conversations. Like I'm thinking about like postpartum. I'm such like a joyful person at heart. I was so excited for the twins. I had no idea what colic was. And my doctors didn't talk to me about depression after postpartum depression, anxiety, and I had all of them, two twins, both
Mm,
with, or twins with colic, both of them, and postpartum depression. Like I thought I was going crazy, and EJ didn't know. He was just like trying to survive with me.
right.
And we didn't know how to have the conversations. We didn't get a lot of psychoeducation around it. And I think being a new mom, feeling like all this responsibility and like if I ask for help, people will judge me. I think that was a big piece too. So I didn't know how I was trying to be super woman and I didn't know the skills or I didn't feel okay. I was just trying to like manage it all myself. And also, again, I'm just bringing this in because we had a blended family. So EJ had two boys. They were 3 and 5 when the twins were born.
Wow.
I figured EJ would just know how to manage this.
Everything.
I had that expectation, like, well, he's had kids, so we got this together. No, the blended family and having to be also responsible for the other two kids because
Hmm.
EJ had to take over our whole workload. That brought on just another stressor. So blended family and just again, how to talk about those and stay connected amidst chaos.
Well, and I think like we were just, and most couples are, we're just trying to survive, let alone stay sexually connected. You know, I
Right.
mean, almost
Right.
like just getting along at times was hard enough.
Mm,
But the idea of like being like really intimately connected, I think especially for Tara, was like that. It was almost like an afterthought. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't think couples are curious because even during my pregnancy, we were like frisky. We had a ball. Like it was fun. I was huge and
Yeah. Yeah.
large and in charge. And I didn't know what would happen to my body. I didn't know that nursing every hour for months I would be like, don't even look at me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even I just felt like this milking person. And I, again, no education around that or sex changes in your body or that I would feel so overwhelmed. And now we know because we help couples be curious. God, what's it like for your body to change? What's it like to have lost that little friskiness? You know, we weren't curious about each other. I could just feel
Mm,
EJ's frustration and his loneliness. And I don't think he knew how I was feeling because we weren't curious about each other. I was just like, don't look at me. And you go take care of your needs the way you men can do, okay? Like I didn't ask him how it was for him to have
yeah.
a partner now who was used to be very high frisky, who's now like, you know,
no frisky.
Yeah. Right.
negative frisky.
Friskyless, yeah. Well, you're sort of alluding
Frisky.
to a couple of things, like in these big transitions, which I would have to say have some level of stress, even if they're positive, right? Any
Right.
change is stress. You're saying there's like autopilots that show up. We have our own stress responses, right, and behaviors and way of dealing. We've got differences, perhaps, in expectations you've alluded to that maybe never got explored
Hmm.
or explicitly
Hmm.
discussed, right? Lack of curiosity, perhaps. I guess I'm wondering how often do you hear people think they can just wait it out versus we have to do something about this? You know, like, oh, the kids will get, this is just going to kind of fix itself. We'll just give it a month or two.
I don't think they even have like the conscious awareness that they're doing that, but I think the answer is almost everybody.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think there's like a level of denial or just like avoidance or dissociation from it where you don't even think that you're like putting it off, but you are,
Hmm.
and then that's when like it sort of trembles at a low rate for a period of time
Right.
until it reaches some breaking point. You go out on a date and one person is really hoping to have that connection and the other doesn't, and you have
Hmm.
a couple glasses of wine, and next thing you know, you're like, screaming at each other and, in the alley of a really nice restaurant.
Uh,
It's like, that I think that that's the way it happens.
yeah. And in your experience, is it largely one person's really aware of the shift and the drop in sex and the other person is just caught up in whatever's going on? Or how often do you feel both people are aware that there's been something to deal with?
I, I feel like that's unique for everybody because there will be some couples that are like, I had no idea everything felt like okay. I just thought like right after 3 months or 6 months after a baby or whatever that things would go back. And it's really that people aren't talking about it regardless of that. And so I was going to say that, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, you guys.
I can jump.
Yeah.
I mean, one of
This is
the
called menopause, Jessa.
Right.
It is horrible. It's happening for me. So this is like
we
a whole other
survived the
podcast.
baby bomb, and now we're
Right.
into
Yes,
menopause.
exactly.
Oh, well, that's the thing I was going to say really quick. So had someone said quality time, no matter even if it's 10 minutes every day, is going to keep you connected during this transition, I would have been like, sign me up. The biggest downfall that couples do is they're like, right, we're bringing this baby into the world and we're letting it survive and we're feeding it and everything, and they just totally put their relationship on the back burner.
Yeah.
Which then the physical intimacy is still expected, but the emotional intimacy is not there. And so now there's this discrepancy
Yeah.
because that lack of quality time, because you feel like the story is we don't have time for us anymore. But then that continues and continues. So when you're not building it and using that amount of time to not have that quality connection, it really does fracture
Yeah.
the emotional, physical connection.
Well, and then I think some of the underpinnings of our work is attachment theory, and I think that plays into the whole, like, is it one person, is it both? Because very often there's an avoidant attachment and there's an anxious attachment, and generally, in our practice at our center and the work we do with couples, the anxious attachment person is the individual who makes the phone call.
Yeah.
Who gets in and is like, I can't handle this. We are disconnected. We have to do something. And the
Yeah.
avoidant is like, oh, okay, I thought we were just gonna, like you said, we were gonna wait this out, and we'd get through it. Or the flip, the avoidant, has an epiphany at home and says, if you don't do something, I'm out.
Right.
And then the other person calls up and says, okay, I need an appointment because my partner's about to leave me, unless we change something.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
true.
So how do couples start to address, these needs and desires and these changes that have happened in a way that's constructive and collaborative? I mean, how should they do it? How should they not do it, maybe?
I mean, I think one of the first things I would say is sitting down when both people are kind of neutral and there's some space, just like, how are we? Just like that check-in, and are there things missing? Are we talking? Are we connecting? I mean, obviously, like, we're big fans of couples therapists, and the way we do our model is like we really dig into history and relationship timeline and see where skills are and where skills are needed, just helping each other understand our ways of coping and or defending, because it's not really the other person that, like, normally when couples come in, this person keeps bothering me and they're just such an irritator, and it's actually, we love this person, but our defenses are up, so now it feels very awful, and so our nervous system starts to see our partner as a threat. And that's not how we want to do life.
Yeah.
And so it's that conversation and being vulnerable and knowing that, like, it's okay. Like, a transition for me right now, my menstrual cycle is changing. It's menopause now. It's very different and it happened quickly and it happened sooner than I thought. Well, now we're talking about it. Like, I get to cry to EJ and be like, this is really awful. Like, my hormones aren't working. Like, I can't even plan now when I would have my anxiety or my little alien come take over. Like, I can't even plan for that. And we talk about it now. So we're really connected in it. But I'm sure a ton of couples don't talk about that transition. And so that we see a lot of couples come in after baby and also during menopause, where both people are struggling because the relationship feels different because our bodies feel different, but we don't know how to be curious and talk about those changes. So then we're alone in it. And so it's just like, how do we feel together in it? And if we don't know how to do that, can we go get a coach or a therapist to help us develop the skills and the empathy and compassion needed to get into the place where you want to be in your relationship?
I mean, I think you have to create a framework for how you deal with disconnection or struggles within your relationship. Because I think now, in going through what we are going through, again, not what Tarah is going through, but we are going through, is menopause. is we have a framework now, and it took us I mean,
Mm.
one of the great things about doing what we did as being couples counselors is that everything we were learning to help couples with was stuff that we were like, we got to do this as well. And
Right.
Mhm.
so, it took us a long time to sort of recover from that initial, sort of trauma within our relationship. But now we have we have a framework. Like we check in daily. We try not to use you did that, and if you would just stop. We try to use pronouns that are plural,
Yeah.
like we can do this better. I want us to feel connected in this
Mhm.
time.
And just, yes. And I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
It's
Sorry.
our, yeah, so it's just like, but now we have a framework for going through it, and we also understand pretty deeply our own and each other's negative core beliefs that are in the background that color every interaction. I know that defensiveness is a huge hurdle for me whenever things get tough, and Tara knows that as well, so she's less reactive to it. I'm more aware of it, like, and that's where having some help
Mhm.
Mhm.
is super important. But it's just so important that you know the way you introduce, if this is the first time you're taking on something big, the way you do it is so important, where it's not in a highly activated time, where you're not pointing your finger, but
Yeah.
instead you're looking at your partner and saying, like, I love you and I care for you and I want us to be connected. And right now we don't feel connected,
Mhm.
because then it becomes a we problem and not it's Tara's problem
Right.
because she's
Right.
just freaking
Well,
holding back on me.
and having, I mean, the language is so important. So it's about the behavior, right? There's a behavior that's happening that's maybe triggering us, and we make it about the person and
Mm.
the whole of them. So then that person feels like I can't, there's something wrong with me, I can't get it right. And so when we even have the language of like when that behavior happened, when that tone of voice happened, I started to feel a little anxious. So just having the language shift a little is so powerful. And sometimes couples don't know how to do that. And you need that person, whether remote or in the room, like, hey, let's try to phrase it this way and just see if that feels better. And the partner's like, yeah. And it's kind of the same thing, but we're externalizing the person and the heart of the person to the behavior that feels not so good.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
super
Well, and I
helpful.
love the shift, not just from you to I, but from you to we. We're
Yes.
together in this. We have a joint thing we're trying to solve. I guess I'm curious how you help couples that, I'm thinking about you. You've just had twins. You got postpartum depression. It's
Mm,
like, I don't have any room for this. Like I would imagine there's like, yeah, I'm hearing your needs are not getting met potentially, but I got nothing. I'm barely getting by with these kids. I mean, there must be a lot of people in these transitions where
yes.
somebody's got cancer or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like, yes, you've got needs, but I'm barely
Yeah.
keeping my head above water.
So we have this whole session that is centered around acceptance versus resignation. We have a whole at-home lesson around it for couples, and it's about, listen, this is not forever. But if we are powerless in these moments, that's where we lose ourselves and our
Mm,
hope. If we accept that it's a transition and here's what's happening, I have nothing to give, but you're in a place of acceptance around that, I'm going to feel really connected that we're going to get through this and it's not forever. It's just when we're suffering, we feel we can't make that distinction and we are in this place of resignation. Now we're powerless. Now we're victims to the situation.
mm,
Now both of us are going to drown. And so that was a big piece. Like EJ, the biggest thing was the colic. You read about it. It's like it says 6 weeks, EJ, okay.
right, right, right.
And then it's like 9 weeks is tops. They had colic for 9 months,
Oh,
Jessa.
wow.
9 months. Nowhere on Google search engine was it 9 months. So we would get into this place of acceptance for 6 weeks, and then and then we'd hit resignation. Like it's never. I mean, I gave up milk, I gave up chocolate, you name it, I gave up everything,
Yeah.
and it still didn't work. And that was how we came to this. Like, you know what? Even if it's a year, like it's not going to be forever. One day they will wake up and not scream, and they will sleep,
Hmm.
and that just like it just was so helpful for us to make that shift. And it takes a little fine tuning to understand the difference between acceptance versus resignation.
Yeah.
But resignation is powerlessness, acceptance is empowerment.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Thank you.
Well,
It,
and then I think also sometimes the process of getting help becomes the only time that the couple actually has
yes.
to be together and have quality time together. And so a lot of times you have those first few sessions that are very stabilization oriented and just kind of getting out some of that negative energy they have. But eventually, our goal is that they really enjoy coming in, that they like sitting down with us, that it becomes a part of the week that they really enjoy. And then if we can create that time for them where they're getting to know each other better, they're feeling more connected, they're even sitting closer together on the couch,
Mm.
then we can spread it outside of the session. And that's where we encourage, some of our assignments or lessons, whatever that they do at home.
It's just,
But I think sometimes like just that dedicated hour and
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes they spend in a therapeutic process is their quality time, and that's the last thing that couples expect. They expect it to be like surgery without anesthesia.
some, not all,
A
but
root
yes.
canal. Yeah. Right.
Yes, yes.
It's very rare, Jessa, where we get in a couple that's like, let's do this both, right? We would love more of that, but
I
it's
think we get
normally,
them there though.
yeah,
Yeah.
one is
Yeah.
in the door, one is out the door, one is terrified, one is like, this is total bull crap. We're
Yeah.
not going to get anything out of this. And then bam, like our final sessions, it's called Old Story, New Story. And we take the couple through their whole process that they've been. And it's just amazing. Like in the short amount of time they spend with us, whether it's 4 months, 6 months, I have some couples for 4 years, doesn't matter. But it's like they went from these negative core beliefs and this powerlessness to like, God, we love each other. We can handle this. We are so much stronger than we thought.
Mm-hmm.
Parallels our process. I wanted to leave. I was like, I did not sign up for this. My nervous system is like, no thanks, I'm good. I miss my 3 bedroom condo and laundry once a week. What is happening? And
Yeah.
but I knew at the heart of it in my gut that I love this human and I love his heart and I'm just really overwhelmed and I'm so grateful for it because now we help so many other people to at least do the work. And that's another thing couples will ask, well, how do I know it's going to work? And I said, we don't. But here's what I do know. Right now you're both, either one or both are in a place of fear. And we want to help you make this decision to stay together or separate out of a place of clarity, not fear.
Yeah.
Because then that brings us into the next relationship. Like our goal is to like help you have some clarity, then you can navigate. But if you're navigating in the place you're in, that's not going to help you make the choice that feels good for you. It's just you're escaping fear now. You're running away, you're avoiding it. And so that's usually they're like, okay, that I get that. Sometimes they're like, no, we really need a guarantee. And I was like, well, then we're not the people for you. I'm
There are no
sorry.
guarantees, right?
There
Right.
are no guarantees.
Well, along the lines of the acceptance, it seems to me that even if, let's take your situation with twins and colic and postpartum depression,
Mm.
we can't do anything about our sex life right now, perhaps, but it seems to me it would go a long way to have compassion for each other. You've got the curiosity, but like to be seen and witnessed and received in your suffering each, would be so connecting, right? Even if we can't change anything right now.
Absolutely. Because
Yeah.
neither person is in
She
an
said.
enviable
Yeah,
position.
right.
No, neither person, but somehow we trick ourselves into believing that, oh, it's much worse to be me.
Yeah,
It's much worse to be unwanted and rejected than it is whatever. And that's what's interesting. Whatever the hell she's
yeah,
like
right.
it,
Whatever's
it
going on
really
her side. Yeah.
exactly it blocks me from actually understanding. And even though she's desperately trying to tell me, and that it took me a long time to get to the point of really understanding and being fully empathetic to what it was like for her.
Hmm.
You said it perfectly, like that compassion piece, holding space for the suffering. That is not a skill that our brain's like, yeah, let me
Right.
do that. Because we're like, oh, we see our person suffering and usually they make it about us. And so we're going to defend ourselves. Like, oh, I'm the reason why you're so miserable. Well, let me tell you why I'm more miserable.
Yeah.
And like that, we can do that for our kids. It's a different type of bond when they're suffering. We're like, oh, come here, honey. But when our partner suffers, it's like, we make it about us. And so it's very hard to hold that space. And
Right.
I remember when we got there, it's called emotional safety, right? I can finally be this mess of a person and completely imperfect and not super mom and not super high frisk. And he still loves me
Yeah.
because he was able to, instead of being avoidant and putting up his defenses and be in that place of like, I can't get anything right, he was able to just be in the experience and suffering with me. It changed everything. Now we're compelled to build emotional safety in our sessions, in the work we do on our podcast, whatever it might be, because it's a shared emotional experience, therapists would call that.
Right.
And it actually feels like, okay, we
Well,
can do this together.
and I think that's huge because there's no real timeline for getting your
Mm.
sex life back into whatever. And there is no actual, we're never going back to our sex life being like it was when we were dating, because we're just not those same people. And it's going to be different. Doesn't mean it isn't really wonderful in its own way, but our connection has to be the most important thing so that our sexual relationship can evolve, and that we can be okay with the fact that, oh, there's another disruptive force,
Mhm.
like perhaps it's now menopause, maybe it's I deal with some kind of illness or injury 4 years from now, or maybe it's, we don't know what it is, but we definitely know there will be another disruption.
Right.
We've got the
And at
skills
least
now.
now, like, at least we're connected now. At least we're not like, we're not just like in that like yucky, blamey place anymore
Mm.
around it. We're totally in it together, and we're like, wow, this isn't exactly what we want it to be right now, but at least we're going to be able to talk about it. We're going to be able to maybe make some strategies. I'm going to be empathetic to where you are, and you're going to be empathetic to where I'm at. And we can manage this,
Yeah.
which
It seems
changed it for us.
it seems to me too, not just defensiveness from a partner or blaming from a partner, but just our own sense of maybe letting down our partner or being inadequate. Like if I'm the one that had the babies and my sex drive is gone and you're trying to tell me about your pain,
Yeah,
even if you don't put it on me, I think human nature could be like, I just feel bad,
it's
and
so
that can make it
true.
hard to empathize.
Well, and we just had last week on our podcast, we had a grief specialist in, and it's grief. Like I didn't know it was grief, but first of all, I expected like just beautiful, boundless energy and these kids that were just amazing and I like what? You did not sign me up for 18 hours of crying every day and constant nursing, and I didn't even know. And my body changed so much. It was grief. And
Yeah.
hearing you say that, it was, we're grieving something that we thought would be different or we didn't think would happen at all. And when you can label it like that, our brain loves labels, but it's like grief is relatable.
Yeah.
And I've lost something. I've lost this. I lost what I thought it would be. I had a different idea in mind, whether, you lose somebody in your life that's dear to you, or a pet, or your loss of like sexual identity, and from being just, to going into a parent like full time. I mean, I was a stepmom, bonus mom 50% of the time, but it was totally different. I've never
Yeah.
been with a baby. I never changed a diaper. I was never, they were on me constantly. And so just the grief of like losing a part of me that I didn't know I was going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can call it grief now. I didn't know at the time that that's what it was. Oh, and again, the postpartum, like I'm so glad. I almost feel like universe, God gives me things because I can get through them and then help others, because we had so many couples when we first opened up our practice after having a baby that they did not know it was postpartum depression.
Mhm.
Like the husband was like, she just doesn't want me anymore. She doesn't trust me anymore. We're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
let's talk postpartum. Let's get you out to a specialist. Like just helping them identify it, because I knew what that was. I mean, it's different from just depression. It's
Right.
like
Right.
And so being able to like help those couples find those resources, I'm like, thank you for giving me all that awful pain because now I can empathize and I know what that is. Okay, great.
Right. You mentioned, Tara, that, somebody had told me that just 10 minutes a day could have kept us connected. I'm curious, besides maybe the check-in time that you already mentioned, what are some specific things people can do, these sort of non-sexual gestures or rituals or behaviors, or, what advice do you have for people about maintaining that emotional connection in the meantime?
Oh, I mean, we wake up early, 30 minutes before our kids get up. That's what we do because it works for us. And we do like gratitude check-in was this morning, but we have our cup of coffee. EJ always writes me a really cute morning note for my cup of coffee, which I love. It like makes my whole day. And if I wake up before him, I'm sad because I'm like, oh, that means he's not going to write a note. It's just these little things of staying connected. I put a cute little like note in his coffee mug this morning. Like we're just on Saturday nights, even if we have slumber parties at our house every week, our twins are 10 now. It's like we are the slumber party house. We make sure every Saturday we have like an hour, even if it's just outside, because we're in Tucson, Arizona, so it's still nice, that we're like asking each other questions. We have like a couple's curiosity game we get on Amazon, and we're just like, we know every Saturday, no matter if it's basketball tournament, gymnastics tournament, we are going to make an hour and we are going to ask each other questions. And during the week, we're going to wake up 30 minutes early. We're going to do a little check-in and we're going to leave cute little coffee notes because it doesn't take a lot of time or energy, but it means everything.
Mm-hmm.
That is how we do it. I mean, couples have so many different, some couples go on walks in the morning. They make that time. Some people, which is actually a really important thing, have these transitions of like from work to home. They like hug each other until they feel that shift and like
Mm-hmm.
they are now present in the home. So little things you can do for transitions, like leaving for work, coming home from work, making sure that like the other partner, maybe they had a crazy day at work. Hey, honey, go take 20 minutes and then come back. I mean, there's just so many different ideas that's like a whole podcast. It's a
Right.
I mean,
great idea.
I think in general, it's important to continue to talk to your partner about what makes them feel loved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What
Curiosity.
makes and liked. That's another
Yeah,
important one.
right. It is
Is like,
separate, isn't it?
yeah, it is just like what is it that makes me feel like, wow, you actually like me, and that these are the things that make me feel loved, and
Mhm.
then it's really like a shared responsibility that Tara being well, Tara feeling loved and liked by me is in my best interest. And so
Ditto.
it is worth me doing some critical thinking around it. Me figuring out how I create habits around it. Like that note, that like she gave me that hint for a few years because
Ah,
she would tell me a story about a couple that she had worked with years before. It was an elderly couple, and he wrote
In her
notes in
lunchbox.
her
She was my
lunchbox,
supervisor back
or
in
her
the day.
supervisor, and she had told me that story, I mean, at least a dozen times. And I was like dense. I wasn't getting it. She was saying, like, I want you to daily let me know that I'm special, I matter, and you love me. And so finally, I made it a routine. I was just like, she's asking for this. She wants this, and now it's fun. I get sad when I come home and she's thrown the letter in the garbage because she spilled coffee on it. Like I love, like, she has this other little place there where she tucks it away on a little like whiteboardish thing we have, and when I see that she kept one, I'm like, oh, I did,
See, I didn't know that
that was
until
a
right
yeah, I was
now.
like,
wow. Yeah.
that's a good one, like. And so it's my responsibility. It's her responsibility to know that, like, hey, if we're not like, maybe like, sexually things are a little bit offline, but if she does something, like says like, hey, let me clean up your eyebrows for you or something, that like that attention
Like his little.
makes me feel like loved and cared for, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels nice. It's just like you have to figure out, and it has to what your partner likes and makes them feel loved, and then you have to figure out a way to consistently do it.
Yeah.
And that's another, just to piggyback on that, because I didn't know it was like a note I wanted. I just knew that I was feeling not special. We really try to help couples now become very clear. Clear as kind. Those are Brene Brown's word. Clear as kind, unclear as unkind. Hey, it would mean a lot if we did daily acts of appreciation somehow with each other so we can stay like clear is okay. We always assume that they should just be doing it. Our partner should just know.
No.
No,
No.
no, it's not true.
Right.
So now I'm like, honey, tell me I look good. I'm needing a compliment. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
need it right now. Come. But before it'd be like,
The minute you see me get out of my car on the day we were recording a podcast, tell me I look good.
but and he did, and it's kind and it's clear, and I'm getting what I want. And instead of, if I didn't have that, I would it fester all day.
Right.
Then, like, he doesn't even notice me, and I'm going to feel alone. And most couples who come in feel alone, but they're together. And so that's even the worst kind of alone than just being single.
Yeah.
So, again, just another how can I be really clear in a kind way?
Yeah. And we have to kind of get over this idea that, oh, if I had to tell you, it doesn't count,
It
right? If you
means
didn't
a
come
lot.
up with it
Values
yourself.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
the theme of like waiting for things to get better, like any advice about people resuming a sexual relationship when there's been this disruption? Because, you can't just, probably just wait till it comes back. It's like at some point we're going to have to actually put some energy in that direction.
So what we do, I mean, again, every couple is unique. Some couples are more risk tolerant than others. So we do what is called like safety containers for couples. So, hey, if you guys haven't touched at all, start what would feel okay for each of you, and that's it. Like there's no expectation of, let's say, sex at the end. It's like we're just gonna hold hands, we're just gonna cuddle tonight, we're just gonna kiss. But the container is it doesn't go farther than this. So that feels like okay, like I'm going to see what that feels like. And you're, somatically recognizing what that's like in your body. So it's not just this startling thing. We want it to feel very safe. And because both people have very unique nervous systems around how it is, we talk about how can this feel safe for you? And is that okay? Is that okay? Is it agreed upon? And boundaries. And that has usually been very helpful. Now, some couples are like, you just tell us what to do and we'll do it. Like, we're ready. So again, but I have found also we see a lot of, trauma at our center too. And so safety containers and boundaries feel very safe.
Mhm.
And then it helps our nervous system be regulated so we can be connected with our partner. And what we usually find people who have had a great sex life and there was some disruption, once we've created more boundaries and safety containers, like they're like, we didn't even know sex could be like this. I never opened my eyes, or we just thought it was a thing we did. So they've actually discovering a deeper felt intimacy through creating certain boundaries and talking about needs and wants, because couples don't talk about that. I mean, we're always asking couples, especially before our intimacy series, how often do you guys talk about like sex, physical, non-sexual? We just don't.
Right.
Yeah. And so again, though, but that's how we kind of go in like little stages, if you will. And once that feels safe, then, we risk tolerance
Yeah.
becomes a little bit more. That was my,
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, I'm a big believer in a great entryway to getting into our sex life is doing the background work that we didn't do before we got together,
Hmm.
which getting to understand your partner's, how they learned about sex, like what their parents' messaging was, like what their first experiences were, like it's all the stuff we don't know or we sort of like loosely piece together.
Mhm.
But because we enjoyed that honeymoon period, we didn't need to go into all that. And so
Yeah.
so for me it's like really important for a couple to sort of talking about sex is just get the background, like have an understanding of what existed before you entered each other's life.
Mm.
And that's, there are special circumstances where that might be super tough, and
Right.
there the abusive stuff going on in the relationship or past traumas. But I think there's a very high percentage of people that can tolerate that and there's enough sort of distance from it being about their personal sex
Hmm.
life together that it just, it cultivates a deeper awareness and a different type of intimacy.
Yeah.
There's so many times those faulty assumptions play into our beliefs around and values around like sex in our body, and they're just not true. They're just so learned, or there's such a shame piece
Yeah.
to it. And so, yeah, just thank you for saying that, because it's so important, because we're really, I just grew up in a box, like don't do it, or if you do, make sure you love somebody, and you shouldn't masturbate, but boys are okay to masturbate. Like you're just like in this box. You're like, help me. And I have one couple who I worked with where culturally, like she has to keep her man satisfied, or he'll go outside, and so she would do things that she didn't want to do, and like they didn't even know they were re-traumatizing themselves. And this was before they came in, years before they came into couples counseling, because she was just like, well, if I don't please him in this way, he'll leave me for another woman, or he'll have an
Yeah.
extramarital affair.
Yeah.
So just working around their beliefs from that has been huge for them.
Yeah. You're speaking to something that leads into my last question, because I know in my sex therapy practice, often clients will come around to be like, this trouble was maybe the best thing that ever happened to us,
Yes.
because we had to do this differently. We had to have those conversations. I guess I'd like you to end by speaking to some of the benefits or the growth or
Oh,
this is not just a bummer, right? It's a real opportunity.
oh, I could cry when I say this, because I'm like, all of the stuff that happened, like, A has helped me feel so whole and connected and loved by this man, because I'd always try to be somebody else to make sure like I was loved, Like he has helped me grow into my best version for sure, because of all of this. And I think people, sorry, they just give up so easily.
Yeah.
And it's so sad, because I wanted to, but I was compelled because I just knew his heart, even though I really blamed him for all of it. And so it's just, it's such freedom now. And I think so many people, right, we're instant gratification society. We want things to feel okay now. I don't want to put in the work. I mean, and that's why we do what we do, because it's like, if you do put in the work, it's not about work. It's like you're just becoming better and better, and a better version of you for the sake of you.
I mean, it's a similar sentiment for me is just that even though some of the times we've gone through have been very painful, very scary, in the sense of like losing somebody you love very, very much and a family you've built and all of these things. Those times were really scary and really destabilizing, but I've watched Tara and I figure out a lot about ourselves.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like we've really like I, kn- you know, Tara forced me to look at some stuff about myself that I was really avoiding looking at, and I'm appreciative of that. And I feel like we're sort of like, we're very big on we're not preaching from the mountaintop. Like
No.
we're in it too. And I feel like we're just beginning to sort of reap some of the benefits from those times.
Mm.
Like we're just figuring out how to stay connected
Yeah.
in difficult moments. And I feel like we're on the verge of being more deeply connected, more loving of each other than we've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's only because we stuck with it, and also we were in it,
Right.
and that you're right, that's like a hard selling point to people of,
Yeah.
of like, yeah, this pain you're experiencing is the best thing that could have ever happened. That's really hard with betrayal.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
You think of a number of couples who like we took them through um, some of the worst affairs you can imagine,
Mm-hmm.
and they end up so much happier a
Yeah.
year later,
Yeah.
maybe 2 years later. But that's a hard sell to somebody is like, oh, it's actually good that you just went through the most horrible betrayal of your entire life and feel like
Yeah, I
your
don't know that I
soul
say
is
that to
dying.
people right in the middle of
And
betrayal
no,
work, but
yeah,
afterwards, yeah, there are a fair number of people that come out and say this was actually a gift because we really
Yeah,
got to get honest and change what we needed to change, and we're so much happier now.
yeah,
we do. We have in our lobby, right when you walk in, we have a whiteboard that a chalkboard that says our partner is our can be our greatest teacher. Be patient for the lesson.
Yeah.
Patience it is.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Would you say a little bit about where people, how they get in touch with you, what you've got available?
Sure. I mean, I think like the easiest thing is just check out our podcast, Relationship Renovation. We have a couple hundred episodes now. We cover all topics, relationship and individual growth. You definitely could check out we also have a YouTube that has many of our episodes as well. Same thing, relationship renovation. And then our website, relationshiprenovation.com. Keep you up to date on what we're doing. And, we're just really passionate about growing ourselves as individuals, growing as a couple, and having an amazing relationship and having a great family. And then, helping as many people as possible.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, this was such a just I mean, even though we're remote and Zoom, like the energy it's very comfortable. It was a really just nice, comforting experience to be able to be on your podcast today.
Thank you.
Yeah.